This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us again here in the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and we come to you from our WeatherWorks headquarters located in Hackettstown, New Jersey. And joining me, as always, here in the Weather Lounge is my jovial co-host, meteorologist Mike Mahalik.
You're going to run out of these at some point.
Nope. I got a long list.
What do you got? A whole list on your computer somewhere of adjectives?
I just kind of see what kind of mood I'm in and see what kind of mood you're in that week. Before we do the podcast.
So I'm in a jovial mood this week.
Jovial. I know it's the middle of winter, but what are you gonna do?
Okay. Anyway, so today the podcast topic is a pretty good one. We're talking about winter weather driving and the dangers that we may encounter when we're out on the road when there's ice and snow going on.
Our first bit of advice, Mike, of course, is not to drive in the snow.
Well,
but we live here in the Northeast, and it's inevitable. Somewhere along the way, we're gonna have to drive in the snow, even if it's an emergency. Kids, things like that. You never know. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. And, we had to bring in a guest for this because, yes, I used to plow snow. I used to drive a plow truck like a lot of our clients here at WeatherWorks do in the wintertime. And so I have a lot of winter weather driving experience, but we figured it'd be best to bring in an expert. And his name is Sgt Darren Tynan with the Hackettstown Police Department. So, Sgt Tynan, we got you on the air, so thanks for stopping by here at the Weather Lounge.
Hey, thanks, Mike and Brad, for having me here today. I've been with the police department for 18 years. I'm a sergeant of the traffic division here for the town of Hackettstown. So we've seen a lot of accidents and a lot of weather living out here in Hackettstown my whole life. So I see how people can drive here in Northwest Jersey.
Yeah, it's not the best time, of course, to drive. So let's get right into it. Other than not going out, of course, again in the snow, what's the most important piece of advice to give someone that has to go out and drive in those adverse conditions?
Well, the main thing is that you want to drive cautiously. Like you said, the main thing is not to drive in any type of severe winter weather conditions, but we know people have to get out. The one thing is the speed. You want to drive slow, not slow enough where you're going to get stuck, but you want to drive either at or just below the posted speed limit to just adjust your speed to the current road conditions as well. Because here in Hackettstown, you could have snow. You go further east, you could have freezing rain or sleet or anything that. So in living here in New Jersey, you're going to see all different kinds of weather. And the main thing is to watch your speed.
Yeah. And we do have, and talking about that, especially here in Northwestern New Jersey, we do have hills, we have elevation changes. And like you said, there are times when you can go from, rain maybe down into, right in Hackettstown, but then you go up the road, up 517 and, get up that way. You could be back right into snow just because you change your elevation a couple 100 feet. And I'm sure you've seen that plenty of times around here.
Yes, it's amazing where we would have rain here in Hackettstown and snow up in Mount Olive. So people seeing the rain here in Hackettstown might start traveling up a little bit in higher elevation and then start seeing into the heavy snow. So the speed and the following of cars, you have to decrease your distance between cars, especially tractor trailers. If they're out there on the roadways, you just want to be safe. And our general rule is with the tailgating aspect of it, you always want to be like, if the speed limit's 25 miles an hour, you want to be 2 car lengths behind a car in that speed limit. That would definitely increase once the snow starts falling and your road conditions deteriorate. So you want to definitely keep your distance back from any type of vehicle.
Right. And I know a lot of people who drive way too close.
Yes.
I remember even the one time in college, I was going out and with a drive with someone, and they were on the highway and we're going 70 miles an hour, and he is right on top of a guy, and I was on edge the entire trip. because I drive totally differently. I leave a lot of space in between. A lot of times people cut in front of me because I leave space, which is, much.
And not only that, you want that distance between you and the car in front of you, because in case you have to hit your brakes, you can't just slam on your brakes, correct, Sergeant? I mean, you don't want to get into a skid. You want to kind of come to a slow stop and have that distance in front of you, so you have that buffer zone, if you will, before you could hit a car. And because if you hit the brakes hard, you're going to go into a skid.
Right, exactly. And people need to know what kind of brakes you have on your car. Nowadays, a lot of people have the ABS brake system, and that will activate automatically. You'll feel the pulsating of the brakes as soon as the ABS system detects a wheel skidding. So you just want to firmly press your foot on the brake and maintain a steady pressure on that. And you'll definitely feel the brake pedal pulsate, and that means your ABS is activated. You should have an ABS light activated in the car as well. And then for the individuals that are driving a not so newer car that doesn't have the ABS, pumping the brakes is one of the things that you should do if you don't have the ABS system.
I remember when I first learned I'll probably age myself here, when I was first learning how to drive, you were always taught to pump your brakes as you,
yes.
Now I remember something, and this is kind of I don't know if anyone will relate to this, but do you know the ride Test Track down in Disney World, down in Orlando?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if they've changed the ride since then, but I thought I remember they would have you in a car or have you on the test track in, one of those the cars that they put you in, 6 people. And they would do a demonstration where you would have one stopping with the ABS and the other one without. I don't know if you remember that.
You know what? I don't remember that at all. You know what? I didn't get a chance really to go on it because my kids were so small.
But the announcer, the recording behind you said, "Now we're going to go into a stop with the ABS on," and you would actually come to a smoother stop versus like I don't know if I'm right on this. I could have sworn this happened. I don't do that anymore. They don't do it anymore. Okay, well then this might have been back in. Like
our producer says no. Brad is.
Somebody's gonna have to Google that.
Yeah,
anyway.
when I went to Disney World, my kids were more concerned with like the teacups and the Dumbo ride.
That was a cool ride though, Test
Magic
Track.
Carpets.
Anyway, we're getting off the subject here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about braking, and I think that's important. You got to make that slow stop. You got to let the ABS do its thing. The one fun or fail-safe that I used to have when I was driving in a plow truck was that if I couldn't stop, I would slam the plow down.
Mm-hmm.
And then the plow would dig into the snow and ice on the road, and then it would stop me. So that was the one nice thing that, most people don't have.
I think the roads department may have a problem with that, though, if there's not a lot of snow on the ground.
Hey, man, it was that or slam into the guy in front of me, but
let me just gouge over here on Mountain Avenue.
Well, we talked a lot about stopping, but what about actually getting going? What about starting out? Snowy road, what's the best way to go about that? I mean, obviously you want to slam on that gas pedal, right?
Yeah, that's something you definitely won't want to do. You just want to start off a nice, easy push onto the gas pedal to get your car moving. People seem to get nervous and want to either slam on the gas or slam on the brakes, which are the things you definitely don't want to do. Just knowing that if you push on the gas pedal too hard, it could make your rear wheels spin more, which could get you down to some ice and cause you to spin out and possibly get into a ditch or hit something. But you just want to easily ease into starting getting yourself going onto a roadway.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I mean, just basically take your time is what it comes down to. I mean, I've driven in plenty of storms. Actually, after leaving WeatherWorks, and we had this ongoing snowstorm, and just take your time. Get some nice, easy music on that you that you like, and just slow accelerations, slow stops, leave a lot of distance. Actually, it's weird, Brad and Darren, but I actually didn't mind driving in a snowstorm in the middle of the night on the way home.
Well, I mean, there's no cars in the. I mean, that's my biggest fear too is other people. I mean, I know I can handle myself driving in snow. I know how to drive, nice and slow as well. I'm not in a rush, but it's the other people I'm always worried about. And like you said, they sometimes follow too close. But you're right. It's sometimes a little soothing if you take your time and, you're the only one or couple of cars on the road. And, again, snow's, of course, a lot different than ice. We'll get into that a little bit more here. But, a snow-packed road and it's, it's still snowing a little bit. You're fine usually. It's just that when you start getting other folks on the road. Now, Darren, of course, you don't want to set that cruise control either like 65 and start going down 80, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that you turn off your cruise control. Cruise control is good if you're out on the parkway, and that'll avoid you from getting any tickets because you set it onto your speed that it is, the posted speed limit. But you definitely don't want to have your cruise control set on any type of road condition, even if it's raining or snowing. Because that could accelerate if you get into a spin out. That having the cruise control on could make your car go faster and actually cause you to get into an accident. So one of the main things is just turn the cruise control off and just manually drive your car.
Right, like you said, even in the rain, because your car won't know that it's hydroplaning. It's just trying to keep the speed up because that's what the computer is telling it to do. And, if you start hydroplaning and you're in cruise control, you're going to have a problem here in a second. And, going back to that posted speed limit, during storms, usually, the state, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, probably any other state that gets a lot of snow, they're going to have posted speed limits that are dropped from their normal, the Parkway, the Turnpike, Route 80, Route 78, even into Pennsylvania, they'll say, the posted speed limit now or maximum speed limit is 45 or 55. And again, that's the speed limit then. It's not because it's normally 65, you can do it. This is what they want you to drive at. Is that correct?
That is correct. And one of the things that we don't like about when they have these snow emergencies, especially when they ban tractor trailers, because they will ban the tractor trailers on the interstate, which then forces them to come on to Route 46, Route 57, Route 31, which then the problem becomes a local jurisdictional problem because the tractor trailers can't navigate the roadways as well here once they're snow covered or if they become ice covered. So it does make our job a little bit more difficult once the state declares, if they do declare the emergency and lowers the speed limit, as well as ban tractor trailers from the highways.
Yeah, I'd never thought of that aspect of it. Rather keep them on the highways. It seems like is a better idea. Yeah, but I understand why they do certain things. Brad did talk about a minute ago about some sliding, or maybe you brought it up, Darren. But so let's say we do start sliding in a snow or ice situation. We talked a little bit about pumping the brakes. I mean, is there anything more we can do in that circumstance?
And this is a big thing that probably happens a lot when you're driving in the snow, icing conditions, is the skid factor. One of the things that if you do skid out of control, most people want to just slam on the brakes or they'll slam on the gas pedal. And that is the one thing you don't want to do. You want to just remove your foot from the gas and gently, and that I have to emphasize, gently steer your car into the direction of the skid, which means the rear of your vehicle is sliding. And then when your car starts heading in your direction that you are going, you just want to carefully straighten the wheel out. But this is one of the big things that people get nervous about because your car just starts going in a different direction, and then you just don't know what to do. This is one of the big things that we do try to let people know is just to take your foot off the brake and your gas and just gently steer your car in the direction of the skid.
Right. That's definitely some good advice. I mean, I gotta admit that when I was a kid in high school, to get myself used to being out of control and correcting it, I used to go through an empty parking lot and I used to, throw the car out of control where I knew I wasn't going to be in trouble. I mean, obviously I'm not going extremely fast.
Right.
But then that's kind of how I figured out how to correct,
Nothing wrong with learning how to
spin out.
drive it. I mean, especially if you're up from the Northeast.
Now, I don't recommend. I mean, I don't think I'd recommend everybody to do that. It's probably not the best thing to do, right, Darren?
Well, you do bring up a good point, because every winter you're going to have a new generation of kids that are going to be their first time driving in conditions like this. So I would always tell parents is that when it does snow, go into a parking lot that you can, because they don't teach us when you go for your driver's test, they don't teach you how to drive in snow. So kids aren't going to be familiar with what it's like driving in the snow. So do take it into a parking lot, possibly with given permission that you can do that, and have your child drive in the snow a little bit, just to get them used to it before you send them out on Route 80 to go to the mall or something like that. Because a lot of kids aren't going to, this winter season, there's going to be kids out on the road that have never driven in this. And that's what makes it dangerous for them as well as other drivers.
That's true, every season. Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't entirely in the wrong by doing that, even though I felt like I was doing something bad. I'm going to throw my car out of control right now. But, honestly, it's helped me understand how the car reacts in the snow, where I now know what to do. I mean, it's all about practice and preparing for those type of situations. So, when I was actually caught in it, I knew what to do. I mean, there was a time when I remember I thought I was in pretty good shape. The storm was over. This is back in my snow plowing days. I had on the 4-wheel drive. I took off the 4-wheel drive because I thought I was in pretty good shape. There was some, exposed pavement by that
starting to
point.
show up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I lost control of my plow truck. And it was in the middle of a, 2-lane road, and I had to correct this thing. And I had this truck pretty much totally sideways across the road. But like Sgt Tynan said here, took my foot off the gas. I turned into the skid. I had to do it several times because my back end was fishtailing a few times. But eventually I got it. And I saved the truck from spinning entirely around just before oncoming traffic.
I was going to say other traffic. Yeah, that's what you got to worry about. Yourself, you can probably get out of, if you damage a truck, but you don't want to.
Now, I was pretty tired at that point from plowing all night.
You probably had a 15-hour shift or something.
No amount of coffee was the adrenaline ruch that I got after that.
You probably woke up quick.
I was like alert, ready to go.
So, while we're on the subject of 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive vehicles these days, Darren, a lot of folks, including myself at times, you feel like you're invincible out there. I mean, like the car is going to all of a sudden just take care of itself regardless of the road conditions.
You're right. And we do see it. We do see a lot of, a 4-wheel drive vehicle will help you compared to a small sedan that are the ones that normally that we see getting stuck in the snow once the snow's covered the roadways. But you know what? ICE doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're in a 4-wheel drive vehicle or a sedan. You hit a patch of ice, there is no stopping that car. Everyone thinks that a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you can just do the speed limit, go 100 miles an hour, and nothing's going to happen. But those are the ones that also will get into an accident as well, because, like I said, once they hit a slick patch of ice, there's no controlling a car whatsoever. And
it could be kind of for lack of a better word, kind of snowball forward after that, because you don't know, what the conditions of the road are. Even if you get off that ice, there may be more ice or snow or traffic. And then before you know it, it's just turning into, and that's a good segue into ice. So, granted, when you get to the ice part, I don't want to drive on it. I don't think you do. I don't think anyone likes to. But, what's like the worst case scenario you see with ice out there? I mean, is it the freezing rain, or is it the ice that's already kind of formed on the road after a storm or during a storm?
You mean like patchy ice, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, we see a lot of it is the patchy ice. Once the salt trucks go out and salt, and then it snows, and then it melts, and then refreezes. But we also see a lot with sleet. We seem to get a lot of sleet out here, and that makes it dangerous too. Freezing rain, our DPW here in Hackettstown is pretty well. We have a 3.5 square mile town. So the freezing rain, unless it happens at nighttime, which is, like I said, you shouldn't be driving I personally think that nobody should be out during the any type of ice, because there's nothing that you can do to safely walk around or drive around.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been there, sliding down a walkway or your driveway, trying to get to the
You
mailbox.
see some of those videos out there too, of like people coming out of their houses. They're like, it's wet out there, and they try to get to their car in the driveway.
It's like yard sale time, you know. Their mug goes flying. They're
down in the road before you know it.
And that happens a lot. We get a lot of fall victims during snowstorms and ice storms too. So we tell you not to drive, but also not to walk either.
You brought up sleet there for a second. Man, I can remember the one time when we had a large sleet storm, and this is back in probably 2007 or something like that. I remember we had a big sleet storm in the Northeast, and driving on sleet is interesting. I remember trying to get my plow truck going, and it was in four-wheel drive, but it felt like I was almost driving in like quicksand, or driving in like on ball bearings, because of the little, pellets. Yeah, the little pellets of sleet that were all over the ground. It was very strange sensation.
Yeah, it's a weird thing pinging off your car, and then it freezes on your car. So we don't encourage any type of driving during any type of winter weather around here at all, because the sleet, when people start driving over it, they crush it down and then it melts, and then it could refreeze if the salt trucks haven't been out there.
So just going back to some of my experiences in the past, I know I've seen people behind salt and plow trucks passing the salt and plow truck to get in front of them, I guess to get home quicker or whatever.
Well, not only that, I think sometimes you get that junk and the salt and everything spraying up on you, and that I can understand to a point, but it's probably not.
So recommendation on passing salt plow trucks, Sergeant?
You don't want to pass any snow plow trucks at all. I mean, they're out there trying to make the road safe. So you think about it, that if you are behind a salt truck, that means what's in front of the salt truck is not safe. So you want to stay behind them until they get through either plowing or salting. You want to stay back 200 to 300 feet. You don't want to get your car pelted with the salt, because they do spread it out. But also, if here we do have wing plows, which do stick out further. So if they're in the left lane, because most plow trucks want to push everything to the right, and you happen to pass them on the right, you could hit the plow, as well as going into woods or wherever they're plowing.
Yeah, that does not. That's a good point for sure, with the wing plows that are used. But yeah, I mean, I always, when I got behind a plow truck like that on the way home from a winter storm here, I just thought, you know what, I'm in a good spot.
Really,
I'm behind the plow truck.
Exactly.
He's throwing salt. I'll just keep my distance, and we'll just cruise here for at 20 miles an hour all the way home. It's okay. What hurry was I in at 2 a.m, basically?
Exactly. You want to get home safe. The snow plow truck drivers are out there. They're there to make the road safe. So try not to get into their way. Just let them do their job, and then you'll get home safely.
And I think the last thing we want to ask with the snow and ice driving tips before we move on to another topic was the high beams, low beams thing. We're in the snowstorm, snow's actively falling. What's the best thing to do in that situation if we're talking about a nighttime winter storm?
You want to keep your low beams on. I mean, if people who have driven in the snow or in the fog, it's almost the same. You put your high beams on, and that thing just blinds you more. So you definitely want to drive with your low beams on. And one of the things that we tell you is to make sure that you clean your headlights. A lot of people have condensation or something in there. Make sure your headlights are actually working properly to be seen. And the law in New Jersey is that if you have your wipers on, your headlights also have to be on. So we see that a lot, where people having their wipers on in any type of weather conditions and their headlights aren't on. But your headlights are very important during a storm, because people will see that compared to not having your lights on at all.
I always thought it was interesting when you're driving in a snowstorm and you turn on the high beams for a second.
It's like blinding.
Yeah, It's almost like
Darren said,
going warp speed.
Yeah. Like a snow globe. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you see in the movies.
What movie is that?
Like,
Spaceballs? He's gone to plaid, sir.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking more like Star Wars or Star Trek.
Well, I know what you're saying, though. The stars.
So you just went for the goofy movie, Spaceballs.
That's I like that movie. Hey, you know what? Wait, one last thing before we take a break here, and this will be the last subject about the snow and the driving. And we really didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think it's very, very important. What about snow on your vehicle after a snowstorm? I mean, it is so annoying. I know it's the law, I think, that you have to clear off your car, both Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and probably a lot of states. But I mean, people just don't do it. Just take a few extra seconds and clear off your car.
Yeah, that is one of the big things that we see. And it's funny in a way that because we do pull people over for it, right, is that they will only clean as much as they can reach. Then they will clean around, have the little bit around their roof, but they leave the big block of snow and ice right in the center, which that will come off because, the sun comes out, it's going to be melting what's on your roof. And the sheets of ice, any type of snow will come flying off. And we've had here in New Jersey fatal accidents where stuff have got flown off of tractor trailers.
Go right through a windshield.
Right through the windshield and killed somebody. And it is the law in New Jersey to clean your car prior to you moving it. And that is one of the biggest things that we see here, that people don't do that. And that is a safety issue for anybody that's driving out on the road, or even pedestrians that are walking too, because that stuff, you're moving 40 miles an hour, that stuff is flying off.
Yeah. And I think that's and they do have snow brushes that have long extensions on them, because I drive a truck and it's hard to reach, the top of it. It's hard to reach the middle of the back because I have a cover over my bed. You can get these really long snow brushes that will extend across the whole area. So there's really not a whole lot of excuse for leaving that much snow on top of your car.
No, it's not. And it's like I said, it's putting people at danger. And like I said, we do pull people over for it. And it's a hefty fine if you continue to get tickets for that. So that is the one thing, not like you were saying, not just New Jersey. It should just be across the United States that should be your first thing to do before you hit the roads.
All right. Well, with that, here on the Weather Lounge, we're going to take a small break. So after that, we'll be back with Sgt Tynan, and we're going to talk more about how the police department works with the local town and snow emergencies, state of emergencies, road closures, all those things that happen during winter storms. So we'll be right back after this break.
Have you ever wanted to know exactly how much snow or ice just fell in your backyard, or how much snow you just plowed from that 2-acre parking lot? How about getting documentation that explains why you applied several applications of salt to a busy apartment complex? When it comes down to snow and ice verification, it can be a headache trying to find accurate totals for the busy winter season. Certified snowfall totals from WeatherWorks provide a stress-free way to get reliable information for the exact location you need. It is your complete winter weather verification platform. For more information, visit CertifiedSnowfallTotals.com today or call us at 908-850-8600. When you think weather, think WeatherWorks.
Okay, welcome back to the Weather Lounge, and we continue our talk with our guest, Sgt Darren Tynan of the Hackettstown Police Department. So in the first half of the podcast, we talked about winter weather driving, but now let's shift gears. Get it? Shift gears a bit, and we'll talk about, get it?
That's a terrible joke.
All right. We're going to talk about how the police department and the town's public works department and how they all work together when there is a snowstorm on the way. So Sgt Tynan, of course, it's very important during winter weather that I guess you communicate with Hackettstown Public Works and other towns, I'm sure, across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and our entire clientele really that stretches across a good portion of the United States.
Yes, we receive the weather information from WeatherWorks, and so does our DPW receives the forecast. So once we start seeing snow in the forecast, myself as well as the DPW supervisor start talking to see when we would put a snow emergency in effect, or any type of emergency, or maybe not. All depends on how much snow is predicted. Even if we get freezing rain or sleet prediction, because here in New Jersey, in Hackettstown, we do have ordinance where you're not allowed to park on any street during when it starts snowing or sleeting or any type of freezing rain and it accumulates on the road. But we put the snow emergency in effect once we know that it's going to be plowable snow, or it's a salting event, and that gives us the right to tow people's car if need be.
So now, obviously, you know, with our products that we provide for Hackettstown Police Department and the DPW there, you know, we try to give those heads up notifications an hour or two before it actually snows. But is there a line of communication that happens if, say, you have officers out there patrolling, they encounter snow or ice? Do they give a call to the DPW? Like, how does that process work there?
Yes, our DPW is excellent in a way that with the forecast that you provide us, it gives us the breakdown of when you think that the snow or sleet or freezing rain is going to start, which helps us so we can be on the lookout of when this precipitation is going to start falling. But once it does during the nighttime when everybody is sleeping and our officers are out there, once it starts to accumulate on the road, we do give a heads up to our DPW super. But I know that a few of us also gets the calls from WeatherWorks to give us that heads up that precipitation will fall. And that helps us because timing things out is a big thing for us, because we want to know if we need to have extra officers on patrol, if we need to bring in, DPW needs to bring in extra help if it looks like it's going to be a big snowstorm. So that the timing of the event helps us in big time, knowing when we put snow emergencies in effect, and also prepares us for the storm.
Now, you're speaking about the heads ups that you not only get from the DPW, but also the heads ups that we provide to the Hackettstown Public Works. And again, we do this for all of our clients, not only when there's a big system coming in and we're telling you, well, the snow is going to start soon, you'll probably have your first inch, you know, by 4 a.m. But what about just a rogue snow shower or granted, a 6-inch snowfall is very impactful, but usually, you know, that's coming, you know, it's going to happen. You know, a lot of times, not only police departments, but DPWs, they can all prepare for that. But, you know, what if you get that 4 a.m. snow shower that just produces an inch of snow real quick, or half an inch of snow just before the morning drive starts, just before kids and parents are getting ready to hit the roads, you know, and you get that covering of snow that's almost just as impactful because you're going into such a crucial time. How does that communication occur between you and the DPW?
You know, it is tough during the nighttime because most people are sleeping during the day. We do have access to your radars, which we do watch because, we get the weather forecast every day. So it's easier during the day to know exactly when, if we get that heavy snow shower during the day. But at nighttime, our officers see the snow. They do make that phone call to the DPW superintendent. That's going to take time to get the whole crew to come out. And during that morning rush, it's going to be dangerous no matter what, because it won't be enough time to get everything ready. And if the salt trucks are not filled up, they're going to have to go get the salt trucks filled up, which could take an hour or so to get everybody out on the road. And we also would communicate this to the school district. There is busing that happens here and people that walk. So if it's something that would be impactful to the morning commute, we would recommend to the superintendent of the schools to possibly do a delayed opening to give everybody enough time to get the roads cleared for everyone to commute in the morning.
Yeah, that's interesting there. So the people that we call probably also get a call from the police department.
Right.
So they're probably getting...
Because they're already out on the road, right?
So they're probably getting more calls. They get our call saying, hey, this is going to happen in an hour. And then they get the confirmation call from the police department saying, like, hey, we got it covered across the north side of town. That's pretty interesting. That they would also get the same
Right,
calls.
I'm sure an 11 p.m. snow showers, you could catch up to that and get the roads ready to go in time for the morning. But if that thing comes in at 4 or 5 a.m., that's going to be more problematic, I would imagine, than any other time.
Right. And your heads up calls that you do give, I'm not on that because I'm fine with that, not getting the call at 1 o'clock in the morning for it. But our DPW super does get that. So that is a crucial thing for him too, because when he gets the heads up call, that starts the process of calling the people in, which is very important. But there's times of getting people woken up at 4 o'clock if they answer the phone. So there is still a delay in there, even with the wake up call of getting things out there, but it gets the ball rolling. And then our phone call would just reiterate that, the snow has collected on the ground, that, it's happening.
And I think you briefly touched on it before, but the snow emergencies that you put into effect in Hackettstown, is there a certain criteria in inches that has to be hit, or was it just the road covering that puts a snow emergency in effect? What causes or what triggers that snow emergency?
Well, our snow emergencies actually go off of your forecast. We look at the timing of the event. We look at how much snow is expected, and once we know that something's going to happen, if you say between 12 and 3 in the afternoon, it could start snowing. We would do the snow emergency would begin maybe around 1 o'clock. We try to go in the middle just to give enough people to get their cars off the road. But that it also all depends on also how much snow it's, because our roads are not that wide here in town. So if we have cars parked on the road and the plow tries to go through, it might not make it with the cars that are parked on the road. And we want to make sure that cars don't get hit and the plows are able to clear the streets clearly, because sometimes our roads would be impassable if we weren't able to get through there with the cars parked on the side of the road. So by your timing that you give us and how much snow or sleet is expected is when we declare a snow emergency. But in Hackettstown, and I know this is in a lot of towns, is that anytime a road is snow covered or ice covered, you're not allowed to park on that. And I always tell people when they get a ticket, unfortunately, it's like, we're not the only town that has this. I know this is throughout New Jersey, that you park on a street that's snow or ice covered. Mostly any town, you're going to get ticketed or towed. But the snow emergency allows us to bring in extra help as well as tow the cars if need be.
And when we're all on that subject, more of a localized question. I mean, is there communication between, Hackettstown and some of the neighboring townships and towns around, like Bud Lake? You got Washington close by, Mount Olive you mentioned earlier. Is there any kind of communication between the townships before and even during the storm?
No, for the most part, the towns handle themselves unless something happens drastically, like if a town might run out of salt and they might ask our mayor if they could borrow salt, which has happened in the past. So we always try to keep that a big supply of salt for us. But that is probably one of the things I can remember that we would help out other towns.
Right. You're more independent.
Yeah. Correct.
Interesting. On the emergency route, I have the state of emergency that's called by, I guess, the governor of New Jersey. Once that is in effect, who should and shouldn't be on the roads?
Well, a lot of people get confused when the governor declares a state of emergency. People think a state of emergency is that they're not allowed to be on the road. Normally, the first state of emergency that the governor would do is that it would just bring in extra help if need be. That's basically most of what the state of emergencies are here. Unless he specifically says no driving on the road, you can drive on the road unless that's specifically said. But we encourage everybody to stay off the road if can be. But that's one of the big misconceptions that happens with a state of emergency, that you can't be on the road. You can, unless it's specifically said in the executive order that you can't be driving on the road. Most of the times now, when it does snow, they will ban the tractor trailers from the major highways, which then would be forced onto Route 46 or whatever routes they are in New Jersey.
All right. We're getting towards the end of the podcast, so we're going to put you on the spot here a little bit. 2 final questions. Okay, the one, you've been with Hackettstown Police now for 18 years, you said. So, one, your most memorable snowstorm. And then the second question is, as far as you can go with talking about it, the most memorable incident that you can talk about safely during the winter. And maybe it's the same storm. Maybe it's something like that. But talk to us about something that really sticks in your mind and some of those worst storms that you've been with.
Well, I have 2 of them. The one that sticks out and was that I thought was great was the storm in November of 2018. I'll never forget it. That is the day that the snow came in right at rush hour and caused everything to be, all the roads to be impassable. I mean, I'll remember having cars stuck on 46, tractor trailers were stuck, people weren't going anywhere. And when we were out there directing traffic, we had people that they don't even know how they ended up in Hackettstown. They had lived nowhere near here, but with everything being shut down, they just were driving in circles and they couldn't get out of town. And our DPW had to plow and salt the state highways because the state could not get trucks in. That was one of the most memorable storms, and seeing the people's frustration, just that they couldn't get home. And that is one of our biggest things, is the storms that come at rush hour are, especially when they wake up, they don't see anything. Everybody goes to work, and then the storm hits, and then it just mayhem that has happened. I felt bad for everybody that was stuck in that traffic. I mean, we can only do what we can, but hearing the people that didn't live in this area and ended up here because of the roadways being shut down, it was. I felt bad.
It got even worse as you got closer to New York City and northern New Jersey, and like into the real urban area of the Turnpike and the Parkway and Route 9 and the whole mess up that way.
Yeah, that was my most one that I remember, and the most recent one was the one in January of this year, where we had the 30 plus inches of snow, which caused us to put into effect alternate side parking, which you could only park on one side of the street, which this is the second time since in the 18 years that we've had to do that with the amount of snow that came down. But seeing it just pile up, and it took weeks for the intersections to get cleared because, the plow trucks will just go through once to make everything safe. But those were my 2 most memorable storms. And I mean, there's plenty. We get plenty of snow out here, but those are the 2 that stick out in my mind.
I got to say that November storm was one of my most memorable too, because I was actually...
You were in Atlantic City.
I was in Atlantic City with our company, WeatherWorks. We were at a trade show for the New Jersey League of Municipalities. So there were a lot of municipalities in the state at this show, a lot of important people talking about, supervisors and directors and things like that. And after a while, when we realized that this was going to be a problem, and this was going to stick, we started giving people briefings
while you're in person.
In person at the trade show. We're saying, guys, this is going to be serious. This is going to stick. And they kept saying, well, it's November, it's just going to melt. No, it's going to stick. It's going to snow so hard. It's not going to matter what the pavement temperature is, and it's going to stick. And that's what was the big problem with that storm.
It was the snow rates that just overtook everything.
Right, because you had roads that were relatively warm, and then you had the snow initially start falling, get them wet. And then it kept snowing harder, and then you got the ice underneath the snow, and a lot of people probably did not have pre-treatment on the roads to get anything from that, because with the pre-treatment, that kind of prevents that bond with the ice with the road. So if you don't have that, then you're going to get that bonded to the road. It gets very slick. You had a wet snow that's a little bit more slippery. and it was just a recipe of disaster.
And I think a lot of
basically.
folks left work early that day because they saw what was coming, and that led to more issues because they were trying to leave at 2, 3 o'clock, and that just piled up more cars on the road by 4 or 5 o'clock, and then by then couldn't go anywhere. And it wasn't even that bad in Atlantic City. Is this correct? I mean,
it wasn't that
mainly
bad.
like central North Jersey, and then of course eastern Pennsylvania.
They had some flooding issues.
Yeah.
But they didn't get the snow. We actually had to come back. Me and a colleague of mine had to come back
to help out with the forecast.
To help out with the forecast
overwhelmed.
because this storm is coming and we have to do something and we have to get our forecasts out and our heads ups. But I remember coming home during that storm and I knew people weren't ready. Yeah. So I got away from all major roadways as much as I could. I knew they were going to be snowpacked, but I'm okay with that. Just so long as I was away from other people, potentially getting into an accident or losing control of their vehicle or running into those traffic jams. And that was probably the best move that I made.
I agree.
Because I reduced my risk by getting away from everybody else who was trying to use that same road. I'll tell you, that is a very, very good storm you pulled out there. And especially the January 2016 storm, not 2016, this year.
Last year, it was January 31st through February 2nd.
February 2nd. That was an amazing storm too. And I don't remember it snowing that long.
It snowed at my house from Sunday afternoon through Tuesday night. I mean, I've never seen it snow. I mean, there were breaks. It was lighter at times, but it was almost like a 72-hour snowfall, which I've never seen before in my life.
Well, Darren, I don't think we have any more questions for you. I mean, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I know you guys, but people always beat up a forecast of meteorologists if the forecast goes wrong or if it doesn't snow and they say it's supposed to snow. But we do appreciate the forecast. They are pretty accurate of when it comes down to it. It helps us a lot when we do have to declare snow emergencies or just prepares us for what's going to happen. So we thank you for all of your great help and always helpful for us as well. When I call up there, and I know you helped us out with some graduation forecasts to see if it was going to rain during an hour. So we appreciate all the help that you do for us.
Well, I mean, same here, thank you for that. And we obviously appreciate everything that the police force does around the town here and across the country. That's for sure. So, Darren, thanks for being a guest here on the Weather Lounge. It was fun. I'm glad you were able to stop by.
Thank you, Brad and Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Weather Lounge. Remember, you can always send us an email at weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com, and you can give us any comments about the podcast or any suggestions. You can also find WeatherWorks on social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be. And for this episode, we're done, but we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. So see you then.